they tell me to take aspirin, so I do, but I'm not taking anything right now. So just
good.
Okay. Welcome to Garden of the Spirit, a class studying apples from the orchard for the second time beginning after Pesach 2014. This class meets in Long Meadow, Massachusetts, the center of the universe, and is held in memory of Malka Ruth Bas Moshe, Margaret Vogel of blessed memory. Apples from the Orchard contain selections of teachings of Kabbalah from the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, based on the weekly Torah portion, superbly translated and explained by Rabbi Moshe Wisniewski. Today we are up to Beshalach, chapter 5, page 356. So we're going to go here. Okay, so this one's a short one. And
so we finished the 72 names of God.
We did.
Okay.
Oh, okay. We did very well on that. I mean, you have the chart from last week.
Yeah.
And we're going to go. No, we're going to go back a little bit back to it. But you have the chart. You can definitely use it. Okay. When the Egyptians encountered difficulty in the Red Sea, they said Hashem, as Havaya, fights for them. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place.
But we don't see the.
I forgot to share the screen.
Correct.
Yes, this is one page over here. When the Egyptians encountered difficulty in the Red Sea, the wheels began to get stuck in the mud and so on. They said Hashem, Havaya, fights for them against Egypt. Egypt received their sustenance from Elohim, undeveloped intellect. After the plague of lice, the Egyptians said, it is the finger of Elohim. You're going to begin, Alan?
The Egyptians' confusion. Egypt said, I must flee from the presence of Israel, for Hashem, Havaya, is fighting for them against Mitzrayim. As you know, Pharaoh derived sustenance entirely from immature divine consciousness, Mochin Tekatnos, that of the names Elohim.
First, at Moshe's first encounter with Pharaoh, Moshe said, so says Havaya, send my nation. Pharaoh answered, I don't know Havaya. Let me go on. The Egyptians assumed the plagues were from Elohim, thought they could deal with that, and that they would manage to survive. Because Elohim they related to. But now at the sea, they realized the punishments came from Havaya. As they said, Havaya fights for them. Hashem nilcham lahem b'Mitzrayim. Havaya is something they had no way to deal with. They said they needed to just get out of there. It was at the sea that they realized that they're dealing with Havaya and not Elohim, and that's why the reaction was very different than it was to the plague.
While of the name Havaya signifies expanded, mature consciousness, he knew nothing. As it is written, I have not known Hashem, Havaya. The Egyptians reasoned that the plagues were nothing more than the finger of Elohim, and therefore were not worried because they felt that their existence was not threatened. Now, however, at the sea, they saw that events were being conducted by the name Havaya. So therefore, Pharaoh said, I must flee from the presence of Israel, for Hashem, Havaya, is fighting them against Mitzrayim. Hashem was fighting the Egyptians with his name Havaya, which is why the name Havaya is used here, and not the name Elohim.
All right, any questions or comments? Okay, now we're going to get into the real thing. And, okay. So now we're at chapter 6 of Beshalach 357. The Hebrew name for the Red Sea, Yam Suf, actually means sea of reeds. I don't know where the name Red Sea comes from. On the second day of creation, the Torah says Hashem called the dry area land, and the collection of water he called seas. Why is seas in the plural form, not singular? Hashem had said, let the water gather to one place. He says, let the water gather to one place, but now we call it seas in the plural. Now the Rashi says that the reason why the Torah writes it in the plural and why Eretz just in the singular is because the fish that that's caught, that swims near Spain doesn't have the same taste as a fish that's caught near, I forgot. You're looking at me funny. These
So-
fish in different countries, from different countries, they taste different, they have different accents, different languages. Yeah, so specifically, I think it mentions this fish from Spain and fish from somewhere else. I don't remember. So that's what Rashi said. That's in the Imtat. We're gonna look at this from Kabbalistic, and I don't think it's explicitly answered, but I think he's gonna give us the answer. We'll have to discuss it. All right, go ahead, Alan.
The snake at the sea's end. Then Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea. Chaim Vital expounded on the splitting of the sea and said, why was this sea called the Sea of Reeds? And why does Scripture describe Hashem's creation of the oceans by saying he called the gathering of water seas and not the sea in the singular? The Sea of Reeds was presumably not the only sea in the world with reeds in it. So why was it distinguished this way? In the creation story, Hashem is described as gathering the water into seas by causing variations in the elevation of the continents. The water is described as being gathered together into one place, which is then called a gathering of water in the singular. Why then is this one gathering of water immediately called seas in the plural?
Thank you. Rashi contrasts the sea, the taste of fish that are caught near Aku, northern Israel, the fish that are caught in Spain. So the flow of water is a metaphor for the flow of divine energy, as represented by the 4 letters of Havaya. Each of these concepts can be found in the shapes of the letters. The first letter, Yud, is the source of the flow, Chachma. The second letter, Hey, is a pool where the water collects, Bina. And I don't know if it says it here, but Yud is just a point, like the bulb that turns on the light, from which light shines. And the Hey is shaped like a box. It's an open box, but it's a square. And so that shows that it's the place where the water collects. This is known as the ocean. Hebrew word for the Atlantic Ocean, Okeanos, similar to the English word ocean. Okeanos, ocean. In the olden days, all the known oceans were considered one. And yes, I am Eurocentric. When you say known ocean, when you say Okeanos, today it generally refers to the Atlantic, or it could be the ocean as a whole, all the ocean. Okay, go ahead.
Know that supernal water originates in the Yud of the name Havaya, and from there it issues to a gathering of water. That is the first upper hay, which is therefore referred to as the ocean sea. Water is mystically understood to refer to the flow of divine energy or beneficence. The source of this is the Yud of the name Havaya, which indicates the sphere of Chachma. The first repository of this water is the first hay of the name, which indicates Bina.
The second hay in Havaya, which is the fourth letter, stands for a second ocean or a second body of water, known as the Sea of Reeds, corresponding to Malchus. By the way, in Hebrew, when you say Yam, Yam basically means a body of water. It could be lake, in English, what we call lake or ocean or sea. So the second hay is the Sea of Reeds, and that's Malchus. Malchus is the last sphera, and the Hebrew word for reed also means end. The Yam Suf would be the final sea or the last sea. In Kohelet, it says, Kol hanchalim holchim elayam. All rivers flow into the sea, famously. The 6 sphirot of Zerampin are the rivers from the first ocean flow into the second ocean. Let's do this again. We talked about the second letter, the first hay, being an ocean. From there, the water flows by way of the third letter, Vav. Vav is shaped like a tube or like a pipe. So, and the letter Vav has a gematria of 6. So the Vav corresponds to the 6 spheres of Zeranpin. So all the rivers flow into the sea, meaning that from the first ocean, the hay, they flow through the Vav, 6 of the Vav, and they flow into the sea, meaning the second hay, the Malchut, symbolized by the Yam Suf. Where are you? Okay, Jim, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, 357 at the bottom.
This sea produces a second sea, which is known as a Sea of Reeds, the second lower hay. The Sephira Bina produces the Sephira Malchus. Both Bina and Malchus are feminine principles, recipients of the output of the masculine principles of Chachma and the Midot, respectively. The words usually translated as Red Sea, Yam Suf, really mean Reed Sea, and also can be read as if they were vocalizing Yam Suf, meaning Sea of the End. The end of the final Sephira, Malchus, descends into the lower worlds, the lower levels of divine consciousness. Relative to its native environment, these lower levels of consciousness are immature or constricted. Water reaches the lower sea via the rivers that run into the sea. These are Midot, the 6 Sephirot from Chesed to Yesod.
All right. So Paro says, who is Havaya that I should listen to him? Again, this is the first time Moshe went to him. Paro denied this source and flow of divine energy. And as we will see, he wanted to replace it. He wanted to be the one to replace it. He should be the source of energy. He wanted to be the supreme ruler of the world and the source of its energy. Go ahead, Jim.
Pharaoh the Wicked denied the reality of the name Havaya, saying, Who is Havaya, that I should listen to him? Pharaoh's statement is usually understood to mean that he recognized Elohim, the divinity within nature, but did not acknowledge or wish to acknowledge transcendent divinity, as indicated by the name Havaya. Here, Pharaoh's statement is taken to refer to the specifics of divine revelation. Pharaoh denied the hierarchy of divine forces, specifically the selflessness of Chachma, that is a prerequisite to any influx of divine revelation.
Another line.
He wanted to be absolute ruler and head of everything.
Now, the prophet Yechezkel says, at the end of 40 years, I will gather Egypt from the nations where they were scattered, and I will return the captivity of Egypt and bring them back upon their native land. It will be the lowest of the kingdom. So Egypt the kingdom of Egypt will be restored. Just they are going to be at the bottom of the food chain, not the Egypt of once, of yesteryear. Instead of being at the head, at the top, Egypt will be the tail at the bottom. Go ahead, Jim.
In truth, however, he was in the level of the tail, for Egypt is the lowest of the kingdoms. The phrase is taken from Ezekiel's prophecy concerning the fate of the Egyptians in the period after the destruction of the first temple. In this prophecy, Egypt and its ruler Pharaoh are taken to task for their extreme haughtiness and are assured they will be properly humbled.
So earlier in the passage, Yechezkel says regarding Egypt, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, great serpent crouches within its rivers, who has said, mine is my river, and I have made myself powerful. Pharaoh claimed to be in control of the Nile River. This verse supports the idea that he wanted to be the source of divine energy compared to water. Now, by way of explanation, there is no consistent rainy season in Egypt. You can't rely on the rain. In other places, you know that at a certain day of the year is a time to plant this or that. But Egypt has no consistent rainy season. That is a quote from Rashi. Nile is a source of life in Egypt, which lies at the edge of the Sahara Desert. Actually, we have an Egyptologist here. Rudy, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. People dug canals. Actually, where the people live in Egypt is all along Nile. The people dug canals from the river to their fields. When the river rises, fills the canals with water. When the river is low, the canals are dry. When Yaakov arrived in Egypt, asked Pharaoh that the Nile River should rise when Pharaoh approaches. Thus, famine ended after only 2 years. Pharaoh was able to claim that he was in control of the river, which was necessary to keep the crops watered. The river was essential to life. It was the source of life in Egypt. So if Pharaoh walks down to the river, and then the river rides and floods over into the canals, Pharaoh claims credit for it. And therefore he should, and therefore you don't want to be on his bad side. He could threaten the people. You depose me, you're not going to have water for your fields. Or if I'm not happy, I'm not gonna walk out to the river. You guys are on your own. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
He wanted to be the head by virtue of his association with water. For he said, my Nile River is mine, and I have made myself. So Egypt's idolatry was rooted in its geography. The annual flooding of the Nile gave the people the impression that nature was the source of their prosperity. There was no need to acknowledge a God who demanded moral behavior in return for material reward. Both Pharaoh of the Exodus and the Pharaoh of Ezekiel's time exhibited this self-assurance in its extreme, complete denial of transcendent moral God, enshrining instead the idea of the natural rule of the strong over the helpless weak. For these Pharaoh, their own strength was their God, and they worshiped themselves.
Okay, you know what they say? Self-made man worships his creator. So the Torah says, a river went forth from Eden to water the garden, and from there is split into 4 heads. The name of the first was Rishon. The Torah uses the word Rosh. 4 heads, which means, I don't know what the English translation would be. What do you call the beginning of a river?
Head.
Head of the river. Okay, man says, scientist number one says the head of the river.
Hmm.
So that's what the word the Torah uses. Pishon is identified with the Nile. The Nile was the first river from the source. So Pishon is the Nile. Source is the river that went forth from Eden. And from there it split into four heads. What were the four heads? The first one was the Nile. So the Nile says, hey, I'm the first of the four. Since it was first, Paro thought he had control of the metaphorical water and that Hashem could not overcome him. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, he was able to delude himself this way because the Nile is the first of the four rivers that issue from Gan Eden. He therefore took pride in this. He presumed that inasmuch as he embodied the primacy of all water, I guess the Nile, God would not be able to prevail over him in any manner connected with water. In the description of the Garden of Eden, we read, a river issued forth from Eden to water the garden. And from there divided into four heads. The name of the first was Pishon. The original river went underground, resurfaced in four places, becoming the four great rivers of ancient Near East. The first was Pishon, which is synonymous with the Nile. Rashi. Pharaoh knew that the Nile was the first of the four rivers that issued from the primordial river of Eden, and thus felt that God had given over to Egypt and to him as its ruler the fountainhead of material bounty in this world. Since he was in control, he felt he was in God's stead, or that he must be a manifestation of God himself.
Thanks. It's amazing. Paro was in complete denial. Okay.
What else is new?
What?
I said, what else is new?
Okay, so Egypt also has another body of water, Sea of Reeds, or Last Sea. We said before, Yam Suf. Yam Suf is a reed, and Yam Sof is last. It's the last sea. This implied that while Egypt was the head, because of its proximity to the Nile, it was also the tail. It's also at the end. And this is the symbol of the Ouroboros.
Hmm?
No, the dictionary. Ouroboros.
Mhm.
Aurora Borealis?
No,
Ouroboros, circular serpent
the
with
circular,
its tail in its mouth.
Oh, the serpent that eats its own tail.
yes.
Remember when we learned this 6 years ago?
Yeah. The serpent that swallows itself
Me
with
too.
its own tail.
So in I guess popular culture, or it's a symbol for renewal,
Mhm.
symbol for life and renewal. But in Fred, you want to hit the light? Light. Thanks. But here it's in a negative context. Indicates that the head is not a true leader. It's not moving forward. It's doubled over on itself. The head that swallows its own tail is engaged in mundane matters. Very different idea than in popular culture. Okay, and that is, yeah, go ahead, 359. This is the significance.
I think he failed to realize. Did we do that? He
No,
failed to realize he was
Oh,
the
I'm
tail.
sorry.
He failed to realize he was also the tail of the water, for the tail of all seas was the Sea of Reeds. He failed to understand that even if his was the most prosperous and advanced civilization of the world, this was only in the material plane. The presence of the Sea of Reeds next to the Nile was meant as a constant reminder that material bounty is only the lowest level of creation, that spirituality and divinity are the main purposes of creation, not the abundance of creature comforts. This is the significance of the fact that the snake puts its tail in its mouth. in Ezekiel's prophecy, Pharaoh is referred to as the great serpent crouching in its river. Thus, Pharaoh personified the primordial snake. The mouth should properly utter words of divine wisdom, but when the tail, the lowest level of the body, is placed in the mouth is misused to utter words of immature, constricted consciousness. Awareness of divinity only is expressed in creation and nature. The elevation of material consciousness to the status properly reserved for true divine consciousness, awareness of God is outside, unbounded by the laws and limitations of nature, is the essence of the primordial state.
1 minute. Can you
This is a little funky.
think
here.
at that?
The elevation of material conscious to the status properly reserved for true divine conscious, that is awareness of God outside and unbounded by the limitations of nature. Okay, it is the essence of the primordial state. So I guess what it's saying is that where material consciousness elevates itself to a status that's really for divine consciousness, that's the essence of the primordial snake. It has no awareness of God as outside and unbound by the laws and limitations of nature.
No,
It's just
no,
it's
no.
awkward.
No, it says the essence. The essence of the snake is that material. It's elevated to awareness of God. That's
No,
what I'm-
it
that's what
doesn't
it
say
says.
it doesn't say that at all. It says the elevation of the material to a status properly reserved for divine consciousness. So when material consciousness thinks it's God, okay, that is the essence of the primordial snake. The elevation of material consciousness to a status properly reserved for divine consciousness, comma, that is, what is divine consciousness is awareness of God is outside and unbound by the laws and limitations of nature.
So let me check if this is what it means. What you're saying is, in other words, when you think that material consciousness is it, that's where creation, that's what creation's all about.
Yep,
That's the snake.
that's right. And that's
Material
exactly
is
what
the end
Pharaoh
all
is.
and be all of creation.
That's what Pharaoh is.
Oh, that's Pharaoh, and that's what the snake was saying.
Yes,
Get the
the
divine
one and the
consciousness.
same. The Pharaoh is the snake.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
It's okay. In the Zohar, the imagery of the snake putting its tail in the mouth is used to illustrate the sin of the evil tongue, slander, gross misuse of the power of speech. People commit the sin. Obviously, we can go back to Gan Eden and we can think about the snake as well. People commit this sin when their material consciousness gets the better of them. I mean, that's what the snake was doing in Gan Eden. He was doing a separation from the divine to an ego sense. As is explained in Tanya, those who give their material consciousness gets the better of them, give into. As explained in Tanya, those who give their bodies preeminence over their souls see only the outer shell of their fellow man, which differentiates between people and are oblivious, to the inner souls. Thus they fall into the sin of hatred, which leads to slander.
And slander is, or evil tongue is what the snake was about.
Yeah.
He misused the power of speech. He used the power of speech to create havoc,
Right.
and downfall,
And lied to Eve, and enticed with this tongue.
What was the
The
lie?
snake.
What was
The
the lie?
snake, the snake tongue.
What was the lie?
About the tree. The tree. You shouldn't eat. from the fruit,
you-
but he said any a part of the tree.
He said if you touch the tree, you'll die.
Touch it, you die. Touch it, you die. Yeah,
Oh, she
eating,
said that.
touching it, you die. That's. I knew it had to do with the tree,
Yeah,
but he lied.
he lied.
What else?
That
And
I
what
know.
else did he do? What else? Lied. He enticed. He also
is time.
blasphemed.
Well, he also did more than entice. He raped her.
Yeah, he had sex with her. I think that was the biggie.
But it's true, but I'm talking about speech, misuse of speech. Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm trying to
So
think different. I'm trying to think how many different things he did with the
I
speech.
mean, he blasphemed. He said, "You're being like God." I remember something of that
He said
nature.
Hashem ate from the tree.
Yeah,
And that's how he knew how to create the world.
right. So it was
So
a
if you eat from
blasphemy.
the tree, you're going to be able to create your own world.
Like God, you'll be like God. It's the same.
Right. So he was
We're back to the same Pharaoh material, God, tree,
he
the
was
snake.
enticing her to become godlike.
God-like. Essentially you're replacing you're just as God. You're like God. Hell, you be God.
So
And
yes,
that,
there were
that was basis of idolatry. Excuse me.
so good. So there are a number of there are a number of things they did with this speech. I just the word comes to my head. That he committed through speech. The Hebrew word that it uses for paro in Yeshaya, in was it Yeshaya or Yirmiyah? Yecheskel. Right? In
Mhm.
Yecheskel was anin. We have a few words for snake. The most popular is nachash.
Yeah.
We also have anin. Exactly what is a snake? What's a viper? Anin is often translated as over here in the Yecheskel that it says that paro, you are a snake or serpent that uses the word tanin, which is usually translated as serpent. I wonder if it can also be translated as a crocodile or an alligator. I'm not being funny. I'm not being stretching. I don't think it's a stretch. Also compared to a crocodile. The image of the Ouroboros is sometimes with a snake, and I think sometimes with a dragon.
Mhm.
A dragon, and a dragon can also be a type of serpent. You have serpentine dragons. So, and tell me, crocodiles live in the Nile.
Yep.
So it would be very fitting if the tanin there is not necessarily a snake, but is a crocodile. At the end.
The crocodiles could have been one of the plagues. The wild animal, or they came out of the ones that came out of the frog.
Alan thinks that maybe the frogs that came out were actually crocodiles. The pictures are obviously always show crocodiles. The pictures. Yeah. It's most yeah. Okay, that could be a bit of a stretch. Usually Sarday is frog. It's pretty standard, although it's not out of the question. Tanin seems to be more general category. And therefore I wonder if it would be a crocodile, which really would be an image for Egypt. So okay. 9. How many do I have here? Oh my goodness. Someone got carried away. 9. In Yeshaya, it says, Hashem will cut off from Israel the head and the tail in one day. This verse now is borrowed to apply to Egypt, who, as we just saw, are both the head and the tail. They're the head because they're the Nile, the first of the 4 rivers. They're the tail because they are the Yam Suf, the last sea, the last of the seas.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
This being the case, Pharaoh was both head and tail. In the idiom of the verse, God will cut off from Israel both head and tail on one day. Both Pharaoh and the primordial snake are metaphors for the evil inclination. The verse quoted is part of messianic prophecy. Although contextually, the head and tail of this verse refer respectively to people's corrupt leaders and evildoers, they are here taken to refer to the attributes of haughtiness and gross materialism. In a deeper sense, both interpretations are the same, since haughtiness corrupts the leaders and gross materialism is the source of most misdeeds.
Yeah, those are pretty, it's pretty redundant. Corrupt leaders and haughtiness and gross materialism. But okay, so now Pharaoh personified the snake as he was called the great serpent. Pharaoh denied the supremacy of Havaya. So Hashem punished him with the letters of Havaya. Did I skip something?
Yeah, you skipped 10.
Ah, okay. This can also refer to the snake and Adam. The head and the tail can also refer to the snake and Adam. First, Adam was the head, the snake, the tail. After the sin, Adam was lowered to be the tail instead of the snake. The snake, representing Kippah, was elevated to the top. The curse to the snake, Hashem says, he will smash you on the head, he will bite him in the heel. After the sin, the snake is now the one represented by the head. That he, Adam, will smash you on the head, that's the snake. You will bite him in the heel, man is referred to by his heel. And so they've reversed their positions, and since things have turned upside down, the snake raises its tail and eats dirt. It sounds like some people are upside down, their nose runs, and their feet smell, right? Okay, Krishna, you ready?
Yeah. This also alludes to the primordial snake. Originally, he was the tail and Adam was the head, but because of the primordial sin, this was inverted and the snake became the head and Adam the tail. Adam here personifies the good inclination or divine consciousness. Sin consists of reversing the hierarchy between divine and material consciousness.
Continue.
This is the mystical meaning of the verse. He will hit you on the head and you will bite him in the heel. Man hits the snake on the head because the snake has usurped man's role as the leader. The snake bites the heel because by sinning, man has become the heel, tail, instead of the head.
Keep going.
For the same reason, the snake gives preeminence to the tail, carrying it above its head and licks the dirt. He puts his head in the dirt instead of his tail. He does embody the upside-down order caused by sin.
Okay. Yeah. This reminds me, the teacher asked the kids, I must have said it 6 times. Teacher asked the kids to use 4 words in a sentence. Eat, duck, and detail. And so the kid says, the feet of the duck went over the fence before the tail. Okay, number 11. Pharaoh personified the snake as he was called the great serpent. Pharaoh denied the supremacy of Havaya. So Hashem punished Pharaoh with letters of Havaya. First, letter Yud equals 10. Hashem sent 10 plagues. Pharaoh claimed to be at the head because of the Nile. The Nile was the first of the 4 rivers. Therefore, the Nile was the first to be struck, turning to blood. So Hashem first hit him at his head, at his primary claim. Go ahead, Gershon.
Pharaoh was the image of the snake. He was the great serpent. This idiom is found in Ezekiel's prophecy cited above. Therefore, Hashem was angry with Pharaoh and he exacted retribution from him. That means the Nile, from the Nile River, changing it to blood using the very letters of the name Havaya that he denied. With the youth of his name, whose numerical value is 10, he struck him with 10 plagues. He began with that which made him into the head, the Nile, and changed it into blood.
13. At the fifth plague, animal epidemic, the Torah says, the hand of Havaya is on your cattle. The word for is, hoya, is extremely rare and has the same letters as Havaya. Ordinarily, in Hebrew, the word is just omitted. It's implied. It's explicit. It's just unwritten. Over here, it is written. It has the same letters as Havaya. The first hey of Havaya is for the 5 fingers of the hand of Hashem. Okay, go ahead, Gershon. One paragraph.
Corresponding to the first hey of the name Havaya, whose numerical value is 5, he said, Behold, the hand of Hashem is upon your cattle. The hand comprising 5 fingers. Pestilence was the 5th plague.
14. As we said, Egyptian sorcerers declared the plague of lice that it was caused by the finger of Hashem. Now, the following thing we read, section we read in the Haggadah. The Torah says, Bnei Yisrael saw the great hand of Hashem at the Red Sea. Rabbi Yossi from Galilee learned from this that since one finger caused 10 plagues, and the miracles at the sea were caused by Hashem's hand, it teaches us that there were 50 miracles that occurred at the sea because there are 5 fingers on a hand. So the 50 miracles correspond to the first day of Havaya, whose gematria is 5. And I should mention there are places where in the Me'am Loes, the Torah anthology, translated by Rabbi Kaplan, there are 50 miracles are listed. It happened at the sea. Okay, Christian, go ahead.
Regarding the hand, Rabbi Yossi the Galilean said, With how many plagues were the Egyptians struck by Hashem's finger? 10 plagues. Thus, you must conclude that in Egypt they were struck by 10 plagues. This is because the finger forms one yud, representing 10 plagues, and at the sea they were struck with 50 plagues, corresponding to the first hey of the name Havaya. When the Egyptian sorcerers could not reproduce the plague of lice, they declared, This is the finger of Hashem, Elohim. This characterized the Egyptians' awareness of Hashem throughout the 10 plagues. Thus, the overall effect of the 10 plagues is considered that of the finger of Hashem. Even though the expression, Behold, the hand of Hashem is upon your cattle, was said with regard to the plague of pestilence, one of the 10 plagues, Rabbi Chaim Vital here is interpreting it as a portent of the blow the Egyptians were to suffer at the sea. In this, he is basing himself on the above quoted passage of the Haggadah, in which is pointed out that the idiom, the hand of Hashem, is used also to describe the scene at the sea. Israel saw the great hand of Hashem that Hashem led against Egypt. Since the finger of Hashem alludes to 10 plagues and the hand possesses 5 fingers, the effect of the hand of Hashem was equivalent to 50 plagues.
And actually, this is the only time where this word occurs in the entire Tanakh.
Hoya or what word?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Is that in 13? Okay. All right. Thanks. The third letter of Havaya is Vav, shaped like the staff of Moshe that he used to begin the plagues and to split the sea. The Vav is also shaped like a pipe that carries the divine energy from the intellect to the emotions. And Vav equals 6, the 6 sphirot of the Anpin. So the Vav connects the first hay and the last hay of Havaya, which correspond to Bina, and Malchus connected by the Ze'er Anpin. Go ahead, Gerson.
Corresponding to the Vav of the name Havaya is the staff of Hashem that Moses used to begin the plagues and split the sea. The Vav is beneath the first Hey, which is divided into a beginning, a middle, and an end. That means 3 Vavs. The vertical line form of the Vav signifies the downward channeling and flow of the mental content of the Hey into the emotions. The Hey is composed of 3 lines, a top horizontal line and a right and left vertical lines. These 3 lines can be visualized as the 3 Vavs.
All right. The Hey, and I explain this in the next one. The Hey has 3 lines, can be seen as 3 Vavs. A vertical line on the right, a horizontal line on top, and a smaller vertical line on the lower left. These 3 Vavs can refer to the 3 Sukkim we mentioned in Beshalach chapter 4 last week to describe how the sea split. Each pasuk has 72 letters. Each starts with Vav. Splitting the sea corresponds to the last letter of Havaya, the second Hey. As we said, it corresponds to Malchus, and the name Yamsuf can also mean the final sea, as Malchus is the final Sephira. We have 3 Vav that form the Hey, and those correspond to the 3 Psukim that describe how the blast from Hashem, the powerful blast, powerful wind, that's what you see. Hey, go ahead, Gershon.
The 3 Vavs of the Hey also form an allusion to the 3 consecutive verses that begin with Vavs. That means, and it traveled, and it went, and he extended, each of which possesses 72 letters, and with which Moshe split the sea. That means the sea of the end, which is the letter Hey of the name Havaya. We have seen previously that these 3 verses form 72 3-letter divine names.
One moment. Okay, so Rudy, that's for you. The 3, the 72 combinations, 72 names by Hashem with 3 letters.
Yeah,
362.
which are different.
What? Rudy, when we can hear you, it will question. You'll ask again. Expanded spelling, but we're not done. Expanded spelling, Vav is Vav. Its gematria is 12. Medrash states that the sea actually split into 12 pathways, 1 for each tribe. Go ahead, Gerson. 362.
Inasmuch as the Vav produces another Vav when spelled out as Vav Vav, it alludes to the 12 paths that appear in the sea when Moshe split it. The numerical value of Vav is 6, so twice Vav is 12. We are taught that a dry pathway through the sea appeared for each of the 12 tribes.
And not only is the Hey made of 3 Vavs, the Vav of Havaya splits vertically into the 3 Vavs that form the Hey. So the 3 Vavs, that 3 lined segment that create the Vav, those come from the Vav of Havaya, the 3rd letter. And I guess you take the Vav and just split it vertically into 3. And then you make a Hey. Okay. Here's the force. I probably could have written it a little different. Is the force of the Yud. What splits the Vav? What splits the Vav into 3? It's the force of Yud. Forces the Vav to split. The Yud, Chachma, is the first uncontrolled blast of divine energy that can overpower the emotions, the Vav. While Bina usually influences the emotions, Bina is divine energy that's controlled, and the Yud is uncontrolled. So the Vav also is getting in on the act of attacking the Egyptians. Go ahead, Gershon.
Who extract this Bab in order to transform it into three Babs, the power of the Yud of the name Havaya above the Bab. The intensity of the insight experience of Chokmah is what serves to produce an emotional response to the intellectual abstraction of Bina, transforming its three inherent Babs into an actual Bab of emotion. Thus, at the sea, the entire name Havaya was mobilized against the consciousness of Paro. Nonetheless, the main force that contended with the Egyptians was the first Hey of the name Havaya, the hand of Hashem. Bina, the main receptacle for divine inspiration of Chokhmah, is the most powerful weapon against idolatry, since it processes the divine inspiration properly and develops it into fully mature divine consciousness. It annihilates the erroneous way of thinking that leads to idolatry.
All right. So I think what it's saying, so the splitting of the sea was, I'm sorry, let's recap. The Yud of Havaya for the 10 plagues. The Hey is for the hand of Hashem. It's for a few things. The hand of Hashem, 50 miracles at the sea. The Vav is the Vav is for the 3 psukim, each one begins with Vav, 72 letters each. The Vav is the staff. Let's see, and things. Vav is the 12 for the 12 passageways through the water, and it's the Vav that then splits and forms the Hey. And so the Hey, I guess, is the final punishment for the Egyptians. It's the splitting of the sea, and then the unsplitting of it before they can get out when they were trapped. And it says that the Jewish people entered the sea, the split sea, the large opening of the Hay and exited the small opening of the Hay. Okay, so the Hay has 2 openings. The whole bottom is open. On the left side, there's a little aperture between the horizontal line on top and the vertical cover line at the lower left. And so here it says, I would think that's what it means, the large, but it says here that they entered through the large opening at the upper Hay and exited the small opening of the second Hay. The first Hay in Hebrew is often referred to as the upper Hay. The second Hay is often referred to as the lower Hay. Okay, go ahead, Gershon.
This is the meaning, that's where we are.
Yes.
This is the meaning of the splitting of the Sea of Reeds, which is the lower Hay of the name Havaya. The Israelites enter into the Sea of Reeds, and after entering through the large opening of the upper Hay, they exit via the small opening of the lower Hay.
So the upper Hay, or the first Hay, is Bina. So kind of Bina.
So far, so good.
What?
I'm in a show.
It's already in show. Okay?
Oh, I hear Moshe.
For what? No, Gershon's talking about Bina. I'm not sure. Bina, it seems to me, it sounds like, he doesn't say this explicitly, it sounds like Bina, the first Hay, is ushering the Yisrael. Escape, come here. I've got I'm holding the door open for you. And they usher in through Bina, pass through the channels of the Vav, and then they exit through the second Hay. That's what it means. And so Bina is called mother, and in the Tillim, right before we talk about leaving Egypt, and I think Kuf as well, leaving Egypt, and we had last week that the sea saw the coffin of Yosef, and the sea fled. Right before that, it says Aim Habanim Smecha. The last phrase of the earlier chapter. Aim Habanim Smecha, the mother of the children, or the mother of sons, rejoices. So it has Aim there, Ima, mother, and it also has Banim, children, which is also Bina. So it says the mother, which is Bina, rejoices because it protected the children and saved them from the Egyptians. And so just read that little section.
Bina was then called the joyous mother of children, for he defended them and their enemies drowned in the sea of reeds. The fate of all materialists is to drown in their own materialism.
Horrible fate. Horrible fate. So then, so at the end of the day, the Egyptians, the first plague was the Nile, and then which said is the head, is the first of the four rivers, and then they were punished at the Yam Suf, Sea of Reeds, or the last sea, which is they got punished at the head and got punished at the tail. They got punished at the top, they got punished at the bottom, and this is the again, this is the Ouroboros, the snake or the serpent shaped into a circle. Okay, Gershon.
Thus, the Egyptians were punished both by the Nile, which is the head, in the plague of blood, and by the tail, the Sea of Reeds, which is the tail of the ocean sea, as explained above.
And so we started off with the question. The question was, why does the Torah say, why is it called the Sea of Reeds? So we answered that because it's the final sea. And why does in creation, in Bereshis, it says he called the gathering of water seas, in the plural, it doesn't explicitly answer, but apparently is because there are two seas. There's the first day and the second day. There's the sea, which is the beginning, the first river to leave Eden, and the sea at the end, Malchus Yam Tov. Once the first sea is Bina, the second sea is Malchus. It could also be, by the way, this over here, it's just an excerpt from the original. But further on the original, it has answered more explicitly. I'm getting fact-checked here. Okay, so this is this. I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts going around. We have Mincha in 4 minutes, so 4 minutes to share. Reflect. 4 minutes to reflect. Okay, I'll go first. So you have things like this Ouroboros, which you look at it and you think mythology and whatever, and here it is. It's mentioned in the Arizal, and he quoted from the Zohar, if I'm not mistaken. In the Zohar, imagery of the snake putting its tail in its mouth is used to illustrate the sin of evil tongue, slander. So it's actually taken from the Zohar. So it has a source in Torah.
This is what's hitting me is this is a powerful witnessing that we can sense ourselves of the Exodus and the flow of our people into the sea, and actually out of Egypt into the sea and out of the sea, and more than just our people, behind it is the flow of divine beneficence flowing from Kesser all the way to Chachma's inspiration down through Bina to the Midot and Malchus. And you can almost sense the powerful flow of beneficence through the Sifirot, right through to the whole image of the sea, through that.
So everything follows the same progression. The Yud, Hey, the Hey.
Yud
Punishments
Hey
of the
Vav Hey.
Egyptians.
You could feel the flow down.
Punishments of the Egyptians. The
Yeah.
progress or whatever. The Israel.
The traveling, the movement of Israel. Yeah. Both
Advancement.
progress. The advancement, the
All
extension.
follows this Yud
The
and Hey.
extension. Right. Right.
Next week, we're in the back of the book.
Yep.
On page 1259. Is it, not many,
Got it.
2.5. Good. 1, 2, and a first.
Thank you very much, Hank.
So that was finished.
Okay, so we're all set?
All set. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay, guys,
Chaim.
thanks very much. A great week.
Good week.
Great. Oh, yeah, let me stop the share. Okay, great lesson.